mbere. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
This is Radio Imanzi broadcasting from Kigali. Here is the news in English, brought to you by Fiona Umuganwa. The headlines. The Secretary General of La Francophonie, Louise Mushikiwabo, has urged Rwandan business operators to exploit business opportunities within the French-speaking community. The government of Rwanda is set to start implementing the capitation model for community-based health insurance, Mutuelle de Santé. The government of Rwanda is set to start implementing the capitation. Please excuse me. The United Nations has said children have continued to suffer the consequences of man-made conflict in 2021 despite some progress. Welcome back. News in detail. The Secretary General of La Francophonie, Louise Mushikiwabo, has urged Rwandan business operators to exploit business opportunities within the French-speaking community. She said this during a press conference on the margins of the La Francophonie Economic and Trade Mission in Rwanda. More than 100 companies from 25 French-speaking countries are in Rwanda to meet about 250 local companies for prospective business partnerships. Officials from the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Rwanda Development Board introduced the delegation to the eased steps required to open a business in Rwanda and different policies in place to ensure a favorable business environment. Mushikiwabo said Rwanda can leverage agreements signed within regional blocs such as the Economic Community of Central African States, where the Francophonie has many member countries. Mushikiwabo mentioned agro-industries, renewable energies, and digital goods and services as areas of interest among member countries. Beata Habyarimana, Minister of Trade and Industry, disclosed that certain companies have already shown interest in doing business in Rwanda, and some agreements are expected to be signed over the course of this trade mission. Currently, La Francophonie drives multilateral cooperation with 88 member states and government, which include 54 full members, 7 associate members, and 27 observer members. Established in 1970, the organization is dedicated to promoting the French language and political, educational, economic, and cultural cooperation among member states. The government of Rwanda is set to start implementing the capitation model for community-based health insurance, CVHI Mutuelle de Santé. Capitation is a form of payment where health service providers receive a fixed amount of money upfront for each person that uses the community-based health insurance. Manzi Prince with this report.
The capitation module is opposed to the phase 4 service payment, under which health facilities get paid after rendering services to the clients and sending invoices to the Rwanda Social Security Board, RSSB, to reimburse. The Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the Rwanda Social Security Board, will roll out the capitation system before the end of this year, exclusively in public health centers and posts for the start. As part of the implementation plan, a survey will be carried out in health centers and posts to establish the number of people, the respective catchment, the average consultations, the price of medication, among other things. This information will be used by RSSB and Ministry of Health to calculate the number of money to be allocated to each specific facility under the capitation module. The primary health care providers will sign a capitation agreement that compromises a list of specific services that must be provided to their clients. According to the health sector experts, the model has advantages and disadvantages. Dr. Jean-Paul Utumatwishima, the Director General of Rwamagana Provincial Hospital, says the new system is a positive move for Rwanda since the globe is moving towards capitation. He noted that it is coming in hand to help health facilities have a good availability of cash so that they can deal with any needs. He said, for them, this is a good move because the health facilities will have access to cash to buy consumables, laboratory commodities, and medication. They can even pay contractual staff in case they have them. But before, they had to wait for many months for RSSB to conduct the verification in order to get paid. However, he cautioned that there is need for strong controls in its implementation so that it will not be misused to degrade the quantity and quality of health services. He said if a particular health care knows that it will get 6 million per month, whether it receives patients or not, it may end up trying hard to receive very few patients in order to avoid spending the money allocated to it. Some facilities may even reduce the quantity of services they render to clients. For example, if a patient has to receive 4 laboratory tests, the facility may end up prescribing only 2, just to avoid spending the money given to it under the capitation module. He suggested that for the new system to work, there is a need for strong leadership in health facilities, reinforcement of financial accountability, effective planning and budgeting. Olympio Nyandwi, a public health researcher, says the new system will reduce some malpractices in terms of poor accountability on the side of healthcare providers. He said some healthcare facilities might have been overcharging the community-based health insurance scheme by prescribing services that were not necessary for patients. For example, a health center can prescribe very many laboratory exams for a patient just to make sure they will have more money coming to them from RSSB. Like Dr. Utumatwishima, Nyandwi noted that capitation model requires a lot of controls for it to be effective.
The Rwanda Water Resources Board has said that water resources are under increasing pressure, emphasizing the need for using them efficiently and effectively so as to ensure sustainable use for future generations. Yvette Rudasingwa, intern at Radio Imanzi, has this report.
The Water Use Permits Division Manager, Vita Munyandinda, said currently they have identified a total of approximately 2,200 big water use, and so far only 696 have valid water use permits, while more than 1,500 businesses are using water without permits. As such, they face penalties as well as imprisonment. He said that according to the 2018 Water Use Law, Article 36, any person who uses water or carries out a water-related activity without a water use permit as required commits an offense. The suspect is liable to imprisonment for a term of not less than 2 months and not more than 3 months, 500,000, or only one of the penalties. Additionally, if businesses do not have water use permits, they are not recognized for water allocation and planning, and they risk losing their water share or their concession areas. Munyandinda said that water should be used efficiently, effectively, and wisely. In order to do this, it's important to use only the amount of water needed, and remember that other people downstream also need it. We have to share water equitably in order to satisfy our needs, not only for the present, but also for future generations. A technician in agriculture and fishing in Gomagana district, Christopher Rudaseso said the water users with water permits realize the importance of environment protection. Water users with water permits operate freely. They are likely to get support from the experts in the sector, and they are trained on how to use water resources by conserving the environment. He noted that there is especially a danger of no environmental protection when water resources are used illegally.
An official from Zipline Rwanda, a robotics firm operating unmanned aircraft drones that deliver blood and medicines to hospitals in remote areas, has said that their new deal to deliver farming inputs is paying off. The Kayonza Zipline station manager, Fisto Ngabide, said in the past it was challenging to supply the semen due to transport inconveniences, but they can now supply whoever needs them in 30 minutes from any corner of the country safely. For a farmer to place an order, they go through a veterinary doctor who is registered in the Zipline system. The doctor then picks the delivery box and proceeds with his work in service to the farmer. Bernard Banzubaze, a veterinary doctor from Gakenke district in Northern Province, say that they have been working with Zipline Rwanda for the last 6 months and it is helping. According to Ngabide, in the last 6 months, they have delivered more than 3,300 doses of swine semen and more than 36,000 Rift Valley vaccines in 27 districts. The service is a partnership with Rwanda Agriculture and Animal Resources Development Board.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
The United Nations has said children have continued to suffer the consequences of man-made conflict in 2021 despite some progress. According to the latest edition of the annual UN report on children and armed conflict, almost 40% of all killing and maiming cases of children were caused by explosives remnants of war, anti-personnel landmines and improvised explosive devices. Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict, Virginia Gamba, called for all parties to take responsibility and refrain from their use. The UN official said post-conflict reconstruction processes should prioritize clearing these weapons, which contaminate land and structures, stop the reestablishment of communities, and continue to cause unacceptable and disproportionate harm to children for dozens of years after the end of the conflict. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir Mayardit has suspended all dredging activities on Nile tributaries following opposition within his government, environmentalists and activists over the deal with Egypt. Mr. Kiir's order put to end weeks of public debate sparked by the arrival a month ago of a 21-truck convoy from Cairo with dredging equipment, which brought to light the agreement signed in April last year. The president said environmental studies on the project's impact on the communities and ecosystem must be done before any dredging of the Nam River and resumption of the Jonglei Canal project. The Ethiopian government has commissioned a UN agency to rebuild some of the destroyed infrastructure in Tigray as part of a project funded by the World Bank. The World Bank awarded a $300 million grant to Ethiopia in April, funding a project to help conflict-affected communities in the country. The project aimed to rebuild infrastructure destroyed by the conflict in the region and improve access to basic services and make it easier for victims of gender-based violence to access assistance programs. Nigeria's solar companies are seeing a surge in demand for mini-grids and equipment as businesses in Africa's biggest oil producer look for alternative power sources after the cost of diesel soared locally due to rising global oil prices. Supply constraints could, however, hamper their ability to capitalize on the trend, with some saying they have begun to turn away customers because they are unable to meet demand.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
Now the Rwanda Stock Exchange Market Report. Today's trading session recorded a total turnover of 22,954,000 Rwandan francs worth of bonds traded in 4 deals on the fixed income market and 1,514,900 from 12,100 shares traded in 5 deals. Bank of Kigali counter closed at 272 Rwandan francs. The trading session recorded a total turnover of 812,000 Rwandan francs from 3,100 shares traded in 3 deals. I&M Bank counter closed at 43 Rwandan francs. The trading session recorded a total turnover of 270,900 Rwandan francs from 6,300 shares traded in 1 deal. Bredwa counter closed at 160 Rwandan francs. The trading session recorded a total turnover of 432,000 Rwandan francs from 2,700 shares traded in 1 deal. M10 Rwanda closed the counter at 177 Rwandan francs. Simerwa at 120 Rwandan francs. Equity Bank at 440 Rwandan francs. Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs. National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs. Utrumi Supermarket at 104 Rwandan francs. And RH Buffalo closed the counter at 526 Rwandan francs as the market closed. The currency market review of today. The Kenyan shilling buying price was 8.5 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 8.7 Rwandan francs. Tanzanian shilling buying price was 0.43 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 0.44 Rwandan francs. Ugandan shilling buying price was 0.26 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 0.27. Burundian franc buying price was 0.49 and the selling price was 0.5. The US dollar buying price was 1,015 and the selling price was 1,035. The British pound buying price was 1,204 and the selling price was 1,228 Rwandan francs. The euro buying price was 1,016 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 1,036 Rwandan francs as the market closed. With that, we come to the end of tonight's edition.